is Kushal Chattopadhyay. Today is November 17th, and today we'll be working with pronouns and commands. And then we're going to go through a couple of examples, and right after that we're going to be talking about the impersonal se, which is super important for you in conversation and in writing. So let's start. Alright guys, so before we get into commands with pronouns, I wanted to go over a couple of sentences with pronouns. So we're still saying in the indicative mood, which is basically just writing normal sentences like you give the present to me, and not into the imperative mood, which this episode will be about, and that's basically all the commands and stuff that we're going to be going over right after this. Alright, so the first question, or the first example, is you give the present to me. Tú das el regalo a mí. So, as you know, for this situation, we'll just flip the entire sentence on its head. So, what does that mean? So, we'll have the subject verb, we'll have the direct object, and then we'll have the indirect object. So, in English, you'll say, you give the present to me. So, when we're talking in Spanish, we'll flip it around. So, the to me comes first, right before the verb, Next comes the direct object, which is the present. That comes after the indirect object, and then comes the verb. So, as you can see, the indirect object goes all the way to the front, right after the subject. So, me. Then the direct object stays in the same position in the middle, and then the das goes all the way to the end. Okay? So this is what it'll be. Tú me lo das. The second example, he tells the reason to her. So essentially it's the same concept. The a ella comes first. Then comes la razón, which means the reason. And then dice comes last. So also remember, it's a se, because you can't have a le lo or a le la. You want it to be a se because se just sounds more right. And that's just a quick rule you should know. Le changes into se when you have a direct object that's lo or la after it. So the general rule that we follow is R-I-D, rid. So that's a mnemonic. So first comes reflexive pronouns. So for example, ponerse la ropa, which means to put on clothes. We'll put the reflexive pronoun all the way in the front, and we'll go through that as an example. Then comes the indirect object, as you can see. That comes at the start here because we don't have a reflexive pronoun. Then comes the direct object pronoun, so la, and then at the end we'll put the verb. So this is in general what you'll do. I like to say we just flip it around on its head. So you're putting the a mí at the start, you're putting the el regalo in the middle, and then you're putting the verb at the end. So that's just two ways to remember it. Alright then guys, so here is our first example. So I basically just copied it from our past example, and I just changed the subject to tú because we're going to be working with two commands in this video. So for the first one, it's tú dices la razón a ella, and then when you're adding all the direct objects and indirect object pronouns, it becomes tú se la dices. So as you can see, we just flipped it around. So now we'll be working with a command. So even with commands, we'll always be following this RID principle that I talked about. R for reflexive, right? I for the indirect, and then D for the direct. Okay, so first off, we have to say what the command is. So what is the command for dices, for decir? It's irregular, right? And that's why I chose this question. So it'll be D. Just D. It's one of the 8 irregular tú commands that you should have learned, and if you didn't, feel free to watch my tú commands video. I think it's part 1. Okay, so D. So now, next, what comes next? So we don't have any reflexive pronouns, but we do have an indirect pronoun. We have se. So we'll put a se, right, in purple. And finally, we'll have the direct object pronoun. So it's la. So as you can see, I'm just combining everything. I'm just smushing it all into one word, which will be our command. So our command is dísela. But we're not done yet. For all these commands, you have to have an accent. Alright guys, So your Spanish teacher might have taught you this, might have not, but I'm going to teach you it. So essentially we're going to be talking about esdrújula versus sobresdrújula. These words sound super scary, I get it, they sound like Dracula, right? But don't worry, they're not too scary. Essentially, esdrújula just means that the accent is placed on the third to last syllable. Sorry, I should have written that. Third to last syllable of the verb, or the command, or the adverb, or whatever it is. So for example, dísela, what we just covered, is esdrújula. Why? Because la is the first syllable from the last, so it's the last syllable. Se is the second to last, and di is the third to last, so we'll put the accent there. So it sounds like dísela, right? Some other examples include póntelo, explícale, and etc. So a lot of verbs are esdrújula, okay? But then what is sobresdrújula? Sobresdrújula means it's past the third syllable. So it's on the fourth or the fifth or even the sixth syllable. So fourth or greater to last syllable. So for example, you have enséñanoslo. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's on the enséñanoslo. The accent comes on the E. So to be honest, there isn't any real clear-cut way to memorize which ones are esdrújula and which ones are sobresdrújula. But usually the sobresdrújula are on longer verbs, longer commands, such as enséñanoslo or explícaselo. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. These ones are usually on longer ones because there is no fourth syllable here, right? So it has to be on the esdrújula. The best way to memorize is just by hearing them, conversation. So if you just say enséñanoslo, it'll sound like enséñanoslo, not enseñanoslo. You'll never hear that in conversation. Dísela, and then not dísela, something like that. That's how you really memorize accents. It's just a pronunciation thing.
I don't even know why I try.